Cool. That was a new for me at least, is that announcement about the meeting recording.
Yeah, I've
Um,
never heard that before.
yeah, same. Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to the weekly, or I guess this is the monthly APAC friendly meeting for SIG Docs. I'm Jim Angel, one of your co-chairs, and I was just caught totally off guard by my Zoom's automation saying that we are going to be recording. We are, though, recording, and we are abiding by the CNCF Code of Conduct, which is ultimately be nice to folks and others. It is May 25th, 2021 for folks who are doing YouTube sorting. All right, moving on. So, is there any new contributors joining us? Chris, I've met you before. Jai, I just met you now. Are you new to joining SIG Docs or just the first time we've met?
It depends what you call joining SIG docs. Like I've put a few pull requests into the website repo and some docs, um, but it's my first time actually hopping onto one of these meetings.
Awesome. Welcome. Well, you're in the right spot. And I'll say maybe not the first time contributing to SIG Docs, but first time joining the weekly meeting. So glad to have you.
Sweet, glad to be here.
All right, and updates and reminders for this week. So this week's PR Wrangler is myself. So if you have any needs for approvals, reviews, etc., you can find me. I will be out scrounging around on GitHub. And
Oh,
next week's
sweet. I've definitely got a few for you, so I'll be pinging you.
awesome. Well, you know where to find me. So find me here or on Slack. And
Sweet.
next week's PR Wrangler is Caitlin Bernard. And approvers, make sure you know your scheduled PR Wrangler shifts. And there's a link in the agenda, which I will throw in the chat here. Give me 1 second. All right, moving on to release updates, release 122. I saw Victor this morning. Does not look like he's able to join the call right now. As far as I know, we are green from a release perspective. And Chris, you're shadowing, correct?
Yep, I'm shadowing. I can paste in the status that we just got from Victor if you want.
That would be wonderful. If you don't mind, just how about you give us an update on the status of release 122 and we'll go from there.
Okay, well, I just put it in. It's the integration branch is healthy. 47 enhancements need docs, and we've basically contacted everyone so far to ask them to open a blank PR placeholder PR, and to start the docs process moving. So far, 9 PRs ready for review, 6 drafts, and 1 merged. So that's kind of the status for right now. We've been in touch a lot too. It's just still early on. They don't have to actually deliver their content, the first drafts of their content, till July. So we have some time.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Sounds like everything is on track and things are green. That's awesome to hear. We're at
Thanks.
week 5 now, it looks like.
Yep.
Cool. Things are rolling. I feel like it's a repeated trope, at least in SIG Docs, but it does seem like things are a little slower early on, and then everything gets caught on fire towards the end there. So week 5, I feel like, without even looking at the status, I feel like we can assume it's healthy, but it's awesome to get the details. It seems like we're definitely on track.
Yeah, I think so. Everybody's pretty engaged. Everybody's sort of rather chatty in the channel. So I think we're in good shape for the moment. Just not a lot having been done yet.
Cool. Absolutely. Yeah, I see y'all chatting too. It's awesome. Good to see. All right. Moving on to the issues and PRs. So I only had one carryover from last week. I wasn't able to attend the SIGDocs meeting, but I did send out to the SIGDocs mailing list, kind of starting the discussion around switching over from the master branch to the main branch, the new GitHub default. Just to go over a little bit more details here, I don't want to spend a ton of time. I'd really hate to dwell on this, especially if this is already covered in last week's meeting. But ultimately, the short plan here is to get all of the preliminary work done. There's a lot of PRs that can be opened up and merged that are not impactful or non-breaking changes to making this switch. I plan on having those open by the weekend or during the weekend of this upcoming weekend. Once we have those merged, we can start to make a plan a little bit more, I guess, a plan on more of the exact dates and deadlines of when we're going to make the switches over. I know, talking to Victor, the release lead, we want to get this in sooner rather than later, so we're not kind of stumbling on each other here towards the tail end of the release. So it is a top priority of mine. I just wanted to clarify that we haven't talked dates yet because I want to get the prereqs done and merged prior to talking dates, because that's going to be the first kind of priority 0 step, if you will. Before moving on, any questions or comments around that rename or what's all involved?
Yeah,
Yeah,
like what's all going on with that?
yeah,
Sure.
same question. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Let me see if I can pull up uh, the mailing list here. Give me 1 second. And I'm just going to link in the original email that I sent out. All right, so I'll paste a link here in chat, as well as I'll put a link in the agenda for anyone reviewing this video. So in the link that I sent, there's this really handy link. I'm saying the word linkaton here, but there's a really handy URL for actually doing the changeover from Kubernetes.dev. So I'll take a kind of a meta step back and explain that Kubernetes.dev has been led by Contribx as the kind of website for contributor resources. So a lot of the contributor scheduling, planning, things of that nature, that's the clear delineation between Kubernetes.dev and Kubernetes.io. So with that, Kubernetes.dev has a resource on making the name change of the default branch migration. And that's what I linked in the chat that we're currently using, as well as putting in the overall agenda here. And so what's actually involved here is that GitHub as a whole has made a initiative or an effort to switch to more inclusive naming, such as switching the master branch on the traditional default repositories to main.
Yeah,
So right now, if
finally.
you were to have a your own GitHub account right now, and you were to create your own repository, the default branch in that repository would be set as main. And so what is in this interesting, I guess, predicament between switching these branches over is if you're, let's say GitHub, for example, the company, you can't make everyone's branch change without impacting CI/CD systems, deployment systems, code bases, other things referencing that same code base. Basically, that's a huge, huge undertaking from, GitHub or a source control a repository. And so what they've done is they've allowed folks to make the changes themselves, including in coordination with Contribx and some of the other folks. And ultimately, what we're doing is going into the direction of more inclusive naming, getting rid of the master terminology for the main branch, switching over to the main as the main branch. And where that impacts SIG Docs specifically is it's a breaking change in the sense of our site gets built off of the master branch today. So the change that we're going to need to do, besides the non-disruptive changes that I will add in here for the anytime that I've linked in the chat, what we need to do is make the switch at a time where we can switch Netlify, our current website host, to point at the main branch so the site continues to run. The really good news here is that if we were to not make that change or to, let's say, totally botch this cutover, Netlify will always remain up and running and will give us the opportunity to replug back in the CI/CD systems we have in place. I view this change as being incredibly low risk. I think SIG Docs is one of the early changers in the overall Kubernetes org for this initiative. There was some testing already done, and I want to say testing infra. I think I just saw another post of some other SIG doing this change as well. So I think given the code base, given the current posture of SIG Docs, there's not really going to be a better time to make this cut over. And the impact and the repercussions of doing this cut over is relatively low in my opinion. I think there might be some cleanup or some work to be done, but overall it's relatively harmless. And I think the only reason we haven't done this sooner is it's just waiting on somebody to say, hey, let's do this, I'll own it, and we're going to see it through. And so that's really the role that I'm taking on for this engagement. Does that answer your questions about what we're doing, why we're doing, or how we're doing it?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of stuff going on to do that internally on like in our company as well. It was nice to see GitHub finally make that switch. It took them a few months after the whole movement, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, really just general alignment. And there's other, like you think about the Kubernetes main repository, the amount of tie-ins and the amount of sprawl and dependency, that's going to be a lot more challenging to migrate over than, for example, the website. So
So will the defaults, just like if you do a new new fork and clone, will you just get that will be the default? And if you go forward and you just, click and don't change anything, it would, like, your pull request would go there and all that kind of stuff by default. Is that how it will work?
Correct. And I'm not too sure exactly what gets left over if there is still a master branch in that repository or not. I would imagine maybe for some time being. I know for a fact, I forget which repo I was working out of, maybe community, I can't recall. There's one I was working out of where I had a fork that previously was set to master. And so I went to it, I've created a branch, I made some changes, I committed it back up. When I went back to the website, I realized that the changes were against master and not main, and so it didn't appear up for a pull request. And I had to switch my branch and switch to their upstream main, create the branch off of that, repush it, and it was pretty much good to go. So there were some issues, but I would say that if you're aware that this change is happening, you'll see some of the errors that get spits out at you and really kind of connect the dots. The master branch doesn't exist, or I can't really describe it because I don't remember exactly what errors I ran into, but I remember being like, my whole system is broken. Oh no, I'm just on the wrong branch. Cool. And then there is some instructions as well in that link that I sent out about changes post rename, as well as in the email that I sent out, updating your local clone to rename a branch there in the email that I sent out. So let me. Oh, I already hit that link there. Okay. Yeah, so you see a couple things worth considering in my email: impacts the docs release cycle, which Victor's already mentioned. Localization efforts. I haven't heard much from that standpoint. Um, and then impact to in-flight PRs and master branch, and then impact to folks doing local dev, which would be updating your local clones. And then that URL brings you to the document to switch over that branch. So, yeah, and I think really ultimately it comes down to preemptively making the switch or hitting an error and then realizing it and making the switch then.
Sounds good.
Cool. So yeah, look for the dates once we get those pre-flight PRs merged or the non-disruptive PRs merged, and we'll go from there. All right. Well, we had a pretty light agenda. The next topic area is discussion, but there's no content in there. So with the smaller audience, I'm happy to open this up if there's any other things that folks would like to talk about, whether it's issues in PRs or general discussion. There's not a ton of content. And if y'all have nothing, I'm happy to cut this a little early.
I have just a quick question about issues. I don't want to point out the particular issue I'm talking about, but in general, when someone files an issue and then something gets done to basically take care of that issue, does the original person posting it have to agree that it's been done, or how does that ultimately get closed, the issue?
Yes. So I feel like this might be a loaded question a little bit by your intro, but I'll withhold judgment there. And what I will say is that usually when there's a PR that fixes an issue, you'll have in the description, fixes : PR number. So when the PR does merge, the issue automatically closes. Now, whether or not that's satisfactory to the original issue opener, I don't think I've really came across, like reopening the issue and rehaving another conversation beyond there. I think that I haven't seen a lot of scenarios where the original issue opener wants to continue reopening the issue or repoking at the issue once there's a resolution. Um, Saying that, like I said, I feel like there's a loaded scenario here. Happy to go into details, happy to not. Uh, but generally, it seems like I have an issue, I have a solution PR, it fixes that issue, it merges, and it closes the issue.
Yeah,
Do you
the
care to
issue
give a
was
little more details?
Yeah, it was kind of a general issue. It said, you need to cover this topic. This
Mhm.
topic isn't covered. And then something was done to cover that topic, but then the person said, well, I've moved on. I'm not really looking at that anymore. So I don't know if that satisfies what I was looking for. And then it just stayed. So I just didn't know if there's, if after a certain while of it, if they don't come up with specific things like, oh no, you still need this or you need that, we'll just close after a while. I was just curious.
Yeah. Yeah. And it sounds like in that scenario, I would honestly, if I were to be PR wrangling or going through and seeing that issue, I would go through and most likely close it if it were to be reopened, just given the fact that anyone can open a PR, anyone can open up additional issues, link back to it. I don't see any harm in closing the PR or closing the issue in a friendly way. I
Yeah,
will
I
say
mean,
that there's also the Feta bot, which will go around and freeze issues. I think it's 30 days and 90 days, but it might be 90 days and 180. I forget the
I think
actual
it's
time frame.
30/90 for stale and rotten, right?
Stale and rotten, yeah. Yeah, so there is that, Feta bot that will go around and say, "Hey, look, this is stale," or, life cycle, rotten, and it will ultimately close after a certain amount of time.
Okay,
Yeah, so
that makes sense.
what I've done also is I've gone through and like assigned myself, pushed to PR, and then usually like I'm still not sure about like the case plot, but it seems like once you assign yourself to an issue, at some point you're able to close the issue yourself. But that doesn't always seem to pan out. Sometimes I get an error saying you need to be a contributor because like I've gone through, seen some issues where issues been fixed, but for example the person submitting the PR didn't use the word fixes or they used the wrong syntax, so it didn't auto close. So if I assign myself and then I try and close it right away, it doesn't seem to work. It says you have to have contributed. So I think there's some criteria, like if you push the commit in a PR that reference that issue, then you're able to close it. But what I've been doing is I've just been tagging people who have access and asking them to verify it's been closed. Um, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely cases where the person opening the issue isn't there to close the issue. So usually I just try and grab it and try and close it out if I can verify it.
Okay, that sounds good. I was just curious about the process. I haven't been doing this for very long with this project, and I'm just curious. Every time I stumble into something where I'm not sure how the process works, I just ask. So,
Nice, yeah. And hopefully I answered your question. I think really, especially with open source and the community and all that good stuff, I really lean on taking action very friendly
mhm.
in a sense of I see no problem in closing issues, cleaning up owners' files, making comments on PRs, whether or not to merge them. And I feel like making action and actionable items or requests or actions upon the actual issues or PRs are going to be beneficial to the overall direction of the open source community. We're talking about GitHub, like issues can be reopened, whatever. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure everyone's getting work done and being productive. And you don't know what folks are going through. And like I said, approach it with as you like to be treated type mentality. And I feel like you can't go wrong.
Yeah, 'cause I
Yeah,
keep seeing like, especially PRs are like people, the PR or the issue isn't assigned, and everyone's like, "Is someone working on this? I want to work on this. Can I work on this?" And it's like, dude, it's not assigned. Like, like there was even one where I was thinking about working on it, but I purposely hadn't assigned myself because I hadn't started. And then I get a message saying, "Are you working on this? I want to take it." Like, dude. And there's so many issues like that where people are so hesitant to actually like touch it. I'm just like, all right, I'm taking this. We're gonna do this. Like, this is annoying. There's a lot of tiny little issues on the website repo that just takes like 5 minutes to push a fix and get done.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I will say one caveat to that is there is a no cookie licking policy in SIG Docs. So that what they mean by that is you can't lick the issue and say, "Oh, I'm claiming this," licking the cookie to claim it's yours. You can't lick an issue and say, "I'm going to work on this," next week or 2 weeks from now. We definitely value PRs and contributions over, assigned issues, if you will.
Yeah, I usually wait till I'm ready to publish a branch before I take an issue. Like, 'cause yeah, I hear you. That's taken and understood.
yeah, yeah. That's the kind of conversation I was looking for, actually. To understand how that process works, because I didn't claim the thing beforehand. I did the work and then kind of went back later and didn't and tried to said, "Hey, I did this," and Anyway, yeah, it's good to understand how the process works. And I think that people bend over backwards to be kind, which is really a good thing that I've
Mhm.
noticed on this project.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You can't go wrong killing someone with kindness. Awesome. Anything else folks want to chat about or talk while we got you on the hook here?
No, I'm good. For the PR Wrangler, do you like what's easier, tagging on GitHub, like on the actual PR, or messaging into Slack, or both?
So the PR Wrangler, as the role, has like an actual description on what to do over searches. I think you go from searching smaller PRs, going all the way to larger PRs, and kind of grok over the open PRs that are going on right now. If you need my direct attention, the best way to get a hold of me specifically, I'm not talking about PR wrangling in general. Me specifically, Slack direct message is the best way to get a hold of me. But that doesn't mean any PR wrangler. I'm not saying any PR wrangler just DM them and go there. But if there's something that needs direct attention, feel free to reach out to me directly. Otherwise, there is a on the Kubernetes repository, and let me just pull this up here. There is a channel with SIG Docs maintainers on it, and usually the PR wrangler is active there. So the channel is called SIG-Docs-Maintainers, and the conversation is around maintainer-specific topics. So if you want a PR review over your PR, you can definitely call out in SIG Docs attention to it. But then there is the maintainers track there if you're talking more procedural, policy, administrivia type questions.
So like if there's a PR where it was a broken redirect and I fixed it and it's literally one line, it would take maybe 30 seconds to verify, like is that something worth messaging someone in Slack, or is it just like wait till the PR wrangler gets to it in their searches?
In my personal opinion, this is not like an official SIG Docs posture or anything like that, but my personal opinion, if you've had it open for a significant amount of time, I would start to reach out to folks. If you just open it today, I don't think it's necessary. Someone's going to come across it. We have very active tech leads on our group channel, and I feel like someone will eventually merge it, especially a simple fix like that. If it has been open for a significant amount of time, I'll leave significant to your interpretation of it. Feel free to start bugging folks then. I see no problem in that, but opening a PR then immediately pinging someone's I feel like not the best etiquette.
Okay, got it. I mean, yeah, so usually I'll keep it in for like a week or two, and if I don't see anything, then I'll start to reach out.
Totally, that sounds completely reasonable.
Cool. All right, thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem at all. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
No, but it's nice having you to ourselves to ask our questions. If there's like 50 people, you're a little more hesitant. So I appreciate that.
No, I really feel like some of these smaller sessions are incredibly valuable because you get more of a direct interaction with different folks. Like I feel like having the 3 people in this meeting here, I can address both of you directly almost. I'm not speaking broadly, generally to the entire group. So we can go through the agenda. We can talk about hot topics, and it definitely serves a purpose a little different than the traditional weekly meeting. And I enjoy it.
Cool. And all the people that watch it later will be sad that they missed it, right?
This awesome hangout that they missed that, in your time zone, 9 p.m. at night.
That's right. Yeah, not bad at all, though.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I appreciate everyone jumping on and talking, and I look forward to talking to you more. Have a good one.
Great. Thanks, Tim.
Bye.
Thanks, Jai. Bye.